to explain some things about how sex builds up into marriage and how marriage is like how sex is supposed to be really awesome once you're married. And I'm going to ask you to help me make a cake right now, okay? Because the truth is that when you're married, sex is sort of like making a cake. Has anybody ever here ever made a cake? Okay, so you guys sort of know. You guys sort of know what it's like to make a cake. What's involved? What do you need to make a cake? First of all, what do you need?
Ingredients.
Okay, good. What are some of the ingredients?
Sugar.
Batter, sugar. I got some sugar, flour. Okay, good. Huh? Eggs. Yep, we got some eggs. You can really just look at the table and just listen to me.
Butter.
Butter, good. Yep. All right. You guys have got it. In the same way that you sort of need all these ingredients to make a cake, you sort of need some ingredients to have a great sexual life. But I'm going to get to that. So can I get a cup of these two? And then I want you to use your best judgment, but will you put some of this in there, and then like a quarter of this. There's nothing to cut. You're probably gonna have to use your hands with this butter.
I'll grab a knife.
And then go ahead and give me 3 eggs. You can just put it all right in here. Yeah. So who watches cake designing shows? Wow. Okay, a lot of you do. Which cake designing shows do you watch?
I forgot the name of it, but it's like this one guy who shapes pretty amazing cakes.
Okay, that's not a very accurate description. Okay. What else?
Cake Boss.
Cake Boss. Yes.
Was that it?
Buddy.
Yeah.
Yep. Anybody else?
Awesome.
Has anybody seen The Next Great Baker?
Yes.
My wife and I watched one episode of that show and then binged the entire season in like one day. We watched the whole first season. Let me ask you, what's the most amazing thing about those shows? Like, what do you like about them the most? The cakes. The cakes, right? What's that?
I want one.
You want one of the cakes.
The design.
You like the design. What's so impressive about them?
They look so real.
They look so real. What else?
It looks delicious.
They look delicious. They look like they taste amazing. I mean, it looks like something you want to taste. That's what's so amazing about those cakes. It's not even like you're not even tasting them. You're looking at them and it looks delicious, right? This is great. Thank you. We all give awesome hands. Well, let me just tell you something. The cakes in those cake shows, that's sort of what God designed sex in marriage to be kind of like. See, sex is a huge part of marriage. In fact, you can be married and just have like one person have a job and the other person sort of stays at home and that's their job. You can be married and you can sort of have one car and the other person doesn't have a car. You probably want 2 cars when you're married. But you can't be married and just one person has sex and the other person doesn't. You also can't be married and not have sex. In fact, sex is a part of marriage. That's one of the reasons a wedding night is such a big deal, is because that wedding night is considered, they call it consummating the marriage. It's what seals sort of the deal. And then within marriage, sex is designed to look like, to be like what those cakes on those TV shows are. It's kind of like one of the really great parts of marriage. It's not the only great part, but it's one of the really great parts of marriage. But you all are dealing with something that nobody's had to deal with before. And that's that on your phones, you guys are, quite frankly, pornography's available earlier than it ever was before. And you have social media. And so you're connected with more people than anybody in any generation ever before. Just out of curiosity, how many of you have got more than 200 friends on Facebook? How many of you have a social media account with more than 200 friends? Anybody with more than 300 friends? Yeah, I had like 1 friend in high school. And so you guys you're facing this challenge of what do I do about sex at this age? You guys are like sort of between the ages of 12 and 17. And the challenge here is that while God designed sex to exist inside of marriage, when you choose sex before marriage, when you choose sex at a really early age, it's kind of like this. Who wants a piece of the cake? Do you want a big piece or a small piece? You want a big piece? Do you want any of the cake? No. Your fingernails. What's wrong with the cake, guys?
It's not married. It's not mixed.
It's not married, that's right. That's what's wrong with the cake. This cake is not really mixed. It's got most of what it needs. The biggest thing is that it's not really cooked, is it?
No.
It doesn't look anything like a cake. And it sort of seems logical at your age. It makes really good sense that because all the ingredients are there, it sort of makes sense that it seems like it's something that you could or should consider. But just because like the physical human parts to perform sex and the desire are there doesn't mean that you should. Because ultimately there's a lot more to it than that. And because all of you have to make a decision about sex now, and it's unfair and it's harder for you than it is for any generation before you, doesn't mean that you don't have to face the consequences of it. You see, this is what I didn't get when I was your age. I said yes to pornography. I said yes to physical relationships. And I learned exactly what the consequence is. And so that's what I just want to spend a little bit more time sharing with all of you. And then I'm going to take some questions. Is that okay?
Yes.
And where I was supposed to give my wife a Cake Boss cake, I asked her how big of a slice she wanted of this. The consequences in my marriage were very real and still are very real. And I'm going to share some of them with you that I've asked my wife's permission to share with you. When my wife and I got married, we had both had dozens and dozens of sexual partners before our marriage. And it made like security within our married sex life almost impossible. Can you imagine looking at someone that's had sex with more than 50 people and asking them whether or not you're the best they've ever had? It made vulnerability really difficult. One of the great things about being vulnerable is that it creates this really deep connection between you and another person. But when you've had your heart broken over and over and over again, my wife and I, when we were first married, struggled to even be naked together because there was no sense of safety there. My wife, she sort of talked to her about her story and her past with drug abuse and sex. And in our marriage now, because of it, and because of what I've done in my past, there is a lot of pain connected with sex. See, when you're in unhealthy relationships and when you're having sex regularly, it can make you afraid of doing certain things. So there are certain things that are supposed to be, my wife and I are supposed to be able to do to create oneness in our marriage that are no-fly zones for either of us. Because it's just too painful. Neither my wife or I have a healthy understanding of what intimacy is. I understand intimacy in marriage a little bit better than I did when I was your age. Intimacy is the ability to connect with another person on the deepest level that two people can possibly connect. My wife and I struggle to have even like the most basic intimacy together because of the pain and insecurity that we both suffer from our pasts. And then, do you know how you find out whether or not you've had sex with somebody that has HIV or AIDS? Does anybody know? Well, I'm not going to tell you how I know, but I'll tell you what happens. You get a phone call from a government agency, and they say that you've been listed as somebody who's had sexual contact with somebody that is reported to have HIV or AIDS. And that's all they tell you, so that you can go get tested. Because of the decisions I made when I was your age, I didn't have much to offer my wife. And what I did was pretty ugly. And now I've been married to my wife for about 4 years, and we still have to have regular conversations about how to build the most basic intimacy together because of what I've done in my past, because of what she's done in her past. It doesn't mean that God can't redeem us, because God has redeemed us, and He is redeeming us. But I just cannot tell you how difficult it is. This is the consequence of me pursuing sex sort of outside of God's plan. Ultimately, God wants you all to be able to have a really great, amazing sexual relationship inside of your marriage. But when you choose it outside of your marriage, whether you're looking at pornography, or whether you're sleeping with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, you're going to start to create this. And someday, you're going to pay for it, but what's more painful is the person that you love and marry is going to pay for it. And so, I want to give you just one simple, one really easy application step. One thing you can do. And so if I can tell you one thing that I wish that I would have heard when I was your age about how to handle sex and about how to handle pornography, it would be this. For right now, just during this time, run for your life. Run from it. Guys, you're going to see this stuff at school. People are going to say, if you haven't already seen it, statistically, you've already seen it at your age. But when people have something on their phone to show you, get away from it. When you guys are with your boyfriend or your girlfriend and like there's an opportunity to be alone, get away from that. I mean, it seems, it has to feel sort of like it doesn't make sense to get away from that stuff because it seems like it should be really great. It seems like it should feel really good at your age. But what I never saw when I was your age was this stuff. I never saw this stuff when I was your age. And so that someday you're not like me, standing in front of the person you married, wanting to offer them your Cake Boss cake, and holding this instead, like run for your life from this stuff right now. You've got nothing to lose and everything to gain from it. That's it.